Welcome to the running back section of the Week 6 videos here on RotoCurve.com. You, of course, can get an NFL trial this week for one of a premium memberships. What do those include? Position rankings, projections, premium cheat sheets, DVP rankings, points per attempt, red zone utilization, optimized DFS lineups for both DraftKings and FanDuel, access to ownership percentage after Thursday night kickoff, all the good stuff your heart would ever desire. So here, let me give you the image. We have got this free trial here, rotocurve.com/NFL hyphen trial. Jim, what do you think? You think this is worth a shot for free? You really can't get a better deal than all this for literally nothing if you go to rotocurve.com/NFL trial.
No, I mean, it's I'm not just saying this because I work with RotoCurve. It's really useful when you build lineups because, you know, we need a place, especially like with how many like season-long leagues we play and setting a lot of multiple lineups. You need something that's going to help kind of refine the process for you and kind of sift through some of the noise and give you some kind of key points. And I really think that's what RotoCurve helps, you know, users do, is kind of directs you. It doesn't, we don't just like hand you the answers, obviously. It's more about directing you into what are some of the most favorable setups and doing a lot of the research and the metrics. It's kind of just presenting it for you then to go make your investment decisions. Because, you know, DFS is so awesome because it empowers us, right? It allows us to build our lineups, to be the GM each week, especially the season-long people. I mean, God, I have a buddy who drafted Keenan Allen and Adrian Peterson in the first 2 rounds. You know, I mean, like, his season's obviously over. Well, I mean, I know that's the pitch for DFS, but I just think it's such a good setup in terms of how easy it is to go from RotoCurve to building a lineup.
Yeah, and I think if you're looking at RotoCurve this week, what we're going to try and tell you, and I think what we're going to try and tell you in this running back video is don't overthink it. You know, this is a very, I don't want to say simple, but at least for cash games, this is, especially if you watch the quarterback video, we like some cheap options. This is a week, and I'll start us off here, even though I usually throw it to you. I think it's Le'Veon Bell, McCoy, and Lamar Miller. And,
exactly.
in an ideal world, and I think you can live in an ideal world this week, you fit all 3 in cash games and you go from there. What do you think about that, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, for example, to bring it back to the season-long thing, people who own Lamar Miller are, like, pulling their hair out. But we all know that with this amount of workload and this amount of opportunity rate, he's going to crack the end zone, and he might do it a couple times one of these days. You know, I think Bill Barnwell had some metric out there. I don't know what the update is this week, but entering last week, he had the most touches in NFL history to start a season without a touchdown. Now, we know Melvin Gordon didn't have a touchdown at all last year, so this is more about a volume per game thing. But he's just due, right? I mean, I know we keep saying this, but he just is. And here's the other thing, too. DraftKings particularly is baking that into his price, right? His price has deflated enough. What is he? He's 6,600, Lamar Miller is on DraftKings. You can afford him in your flex, like you're saying, you know, and still afford. We already talked about how we like Tyrod Taylor. I talked about how Anthony Lynn is setting up this running game, the new offensive coordinator in Buffalo. And what the 49ers are giving up the most rushing yards per game in the league. Like, there's really nothing in the way of LaShawn McCoy. And if you want to talk about narratives, I know we get into narrative street, and it can be a fun thing on Twitter. But LaShawn McCoy hates Chip Kelly, okay? Like, he hates this guy. He wants that ball, and he wants that ball a lot. And I think he could very easily get that 150 again. And if we watched last week, the only reason he didn't score that touchdown was because he just basically got them all the way down to the 1, and Gillislee came in and took the touchdown. I think 100 and a touchdown is his floor, really, is Shady's. So those 3 guys, we don't need to spend too much time on them, are the kind of the chalk. But other than that, you know, in cash, I'm not going to go towards, like, I'll save these guys for the tournaments, but I really don't see who else you trust in cash unless you actually trust Jonathan Stewart to get some sort of workload. But I really think he's more of a tournament guy. And I think Jamal Charles is too, and we can transition that into, you know, once you establish who else do you like in cash, because I really just like those 3.
Yeah, there's one more guy I like in cash, but before we get there, I kind of want to make the case of how, remember earlier this year, Tannehill had a big game against, I think it was the Browns, and then Kirk Cousins was the next week, and we're saying, look, this is basically the same exact setup for him. It's a guy whose team doesn't run the ball, so he's going to have to throw a lot, and it's a bad defense. Well, isn't this the same exact setup for Miller as it was for Jordan Howard against the Colts? I mean, it's a guy who's seen a ton of the workload. Now he receives out of the backfield. So Indianapolis has allowed the 7th most receptions to backs, the 4th most receiving yards. To me, it's just a no-brainer that this is the week that Lamar Miller breaks out. You just can't get that much work and suck this bad moving forward. So there you go. But in the Ryan Matthews case, I mean, this Washington Redskins defense has already allowed 7 touchdowns and 644 rushing yards to opposing backs. Those touchdowns are second. The number of rushing yards is third. And obviously in this backfield, the guy who is kind of their ground and pound option is Matthews. I mean, Sproles is the guy through the air, and that's really not how you beat this Redskins defense. They haven't allowed a receiving touchdown to opposing backs. So I think Matthews, who is really cheap, I'll give you an exact price tag. He is $4,900, so he's below $5,000, and he's a guy who was targeted 5 times last week, which was kind of surprising. Caught all 5 of them. So if he's going to add that to his floor, he actually caught the receiving touchdown. But if he's going to add that to his floor, a bunch of teams against this defense have had those goal line opportunities, and he's going to be the guy getting the ball. So I really think if you're going to spend down at all, which is kind of a risky proposition, I don't recommend it. Matthews is the guy for cash, but I also like him in tournaments as well because he does have that multiple touchdown upside if they get to the goal line. But let's go to you for tournaments now because that's my only other guy for cash. What do you got for us?
Well, I have one more guy to consider in cash because I don't think he's really a tournament play, but I think there's something going on here with Jeremy Hill still being banged up. He's still in a sling. Last week, I think there was a health thing. He's got this chest injury, shoulder injury. It's something in the collarbone area. And, he only had 15 out of 70 snaps. And we saw Gio Bernard get, 78 or 77% of the snaps, 96 total yards. The touches weren't completely there. But I think it's kind of a game, predicting a game script thing. Again, I don't love it because – we haven't. Here's the thing. I only really like him on DraftKings is the idea. I like Gio on DraftKings because I do think that, with the receptions and with his total yardage, the thing missing with him is obviously touchdowns. So there's really not much of a ceiling there. But I think 15 points as his expectation at his price point, it's pretty depressed. And I don't think the price point at 4,600 is factoring all that stuff in. I do agree that Matthews probably has the better setup here because he's the more bankable guy. And last week, Terrence West almost had 100 yards on like 10 touches. So, yeah, it's a good setup. I just think there's something here game script-wise where if the Patriots are the biggest favorites of the week, I could see – and, Eifert's not going to play, it looks like. I could see, Gio being that check-down guy. For tournaments, I kind of already touched on them, but I can't stay away from Jamal Charles at 5,100. If they do take the training wheels off, which is the concept, Perez Taylor – he's a pretty tapped-in beat writer, been there for a long time, the KC Star. He kind of had a Q&A this week where he was talking about, that last week all the coaches said, the week before even in Pittsburgh, that he was ready to go, but they're still holding him back a little bit more. They wanted to wait until after the bye was kind of their thinking. And I do think that the training wheels come off. We've seen some fumble issues with Ware. And really, it's not even about what Ware can do. It's about what Charles can do. And he's just a super upside guy. The price is just low enough for me to take him on in tournaments. And then, his upside is just so silly. I also think Jonathan Stewart, as difficult as it is to stomach Jonathan Stewart on your roster, the Saints are just that bad. James Laurinaitis is the worst run-stopping or run-allowing linebacker in the league. I just think it's such a sweet setup, and it's a cheap way to get into that points fest.
Yeah, I agree with you. Those were kind of where I was going in tournament, to be quite honest with you. But there's another name that I want to mention, which is the NFL's 3rd leading receptions back, which is DeMarco Murray. I think this is going to be a week where not a lot of people are on him because Le'Veon Bell is ever so slightly more, and LaShawn McCoy is just slightly less. So, I mean, you look at this matchup against the Browns defense, that's really nothing to write home about. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 most fantasy points, 4 rushing touchdowns, 2 receiving touchdowns. I mean, they're just basically a team at this point where you start the opponent's best player against them. So I like him. I like some Delaney Walker because I think those are the only 2 real staples in the offense, and I think they'll both get theirs this week. But Murray's a guy who I think leads the NFL in touches. because of all those receptions, along with all the carries. I mean, this is a guy who gets some heavy work. And again, I think this is the lowest ownership percentage you're going to get him at all year because of all the guys that are so much more enticing in that same price range. So I definitely have some interest in him. And another guy I wanted to mention, you hit on Bernard, you hit on Stewart, Jordan Howard, as always. I mean, a guy playing that many snaps. Again, last week everyone was on him because of the much better matchup, but I think he's just turning into one of those backs who is kind of like Gurley for a stretch last year, where he's just very effective in the right situation. And this Jacksonville defense, again, nothing that's really that scary. It's obviously not as favorable as the Colts, but a guy touching the ball 90% of the times in his backfield, he could go over 100 yards, he could catch 7 passes, he could score a touchdown. There's just so many ways he could get it done. We've seen it on a few consecutive weeks that I kind of have a worry going into a week now without some Jordan Howard, as crazy as that sounds.
No, I agree. It's you don't really see these numbers. You don't see 90+% of carries. You don't see 90+%. It's almost like what Pittsburgh does, right? It's almost like what Denzel Williams was doing last year and what we see with Bell. You just don't, like, in a world of committees and like a bullpen style NFL running back situation. I agree. The floor is just so high with him, especially because what Gurley doesn't do, what he seems like he can do, but they don't allow him to do, is catch the ball. And even if this guy's stifled to 50 yards on the ground, you can see 50 yards in the air.
Exactly. So that is where I'm going there. But besides that, I mean, there are a couple middling options like Yeldon and Hyde who are kind of honorary mentions, but I think the ones we've discussed are the focus for me. Do you have any other final thoughts at the running back position?
I mean, if you just want to save money, I think James White is a guy. It's more of a cash guy. I should have put him in that category. But, he even in a game where the Patriots were dominating, he still led the team in snaps. Last year, he was second behind Charles Sims in PPR points per route run, so he's efficient. I think, those waiting on Dion Lewis might be disappointed. He's not coming back, at least for another month. So it's not like this is a short-term role for White. They're going to keep him in this role. And, again, I think it's kind of a high floor thing for how cheap he is on a reception level.
There you go. I love those receiving backs. So let's end right there. But again, rotocurve.com/NFL-trial gets you everything included in a weekly premium membership, which of course, position rankings, projections, cheat sheets, must-have tools like DVP rankings, points per attempt, red zone. You get DFS lineups. You get ownership percentage, so just freaking try it out. We will be right back with some wide receivers for this week, which also I think you'll find pretty interesting.